GMs for Hire.
Welcome back to another episode of GMs for Hire. I'm Jamil King. With me is Matthew Perry. And today, football is back. For the next few weeks, we're going to be breaking down the upcoming NFL season, division by division. There are going to be a couple of different guys joining me each and every week. Today, Matt is with me, and today we're breaking down the AFC South, a division that has moved around the past few seasons. Last season, ended up going to the Tennessee Titans, and they have gone ahead and reloaded. And that's the first thing we're going to kick off with. Matt is our homegrown Titans fan. You know, he's not from Tennessee or anything, but that boy rocks with the Titans. And he was rocking with them before they made a big move this offseason. Obviously, they're probably the favorites in the division because of one of the moves they made and going after one of the best receivers, a future Hall of Famer in Julio Jones. Matt, that was obviously the big move of the offseason. How did you feel about that move for your Tennessee Titans?
I think it's a great move. I think it helps the Titans a lot. You're coming off an 11-5 season. You win the division. You lose in the first round of Baltimore, which obviously isn't the right result, but you get your best seasons yet out of several different guys, most specifically Ryan Tannehill and Derrick Henry. Adding Julio Jones, who for the past, almost decade has been one of the best wide receivers in football. Adding that to that offensive core just does wonders for the offense. And it was probably a top 5, top 10 offense last season. With Julio, it's going to be top 5 guaranteed. I mean, you look at what Tannehill has to work with now. You got Derrick Henry in the backfield. You have Julio joining A.J. Brown. And then you have a pretty solid offensive line protecting you, I'd say, led by Taylor Lewan. I'm very excited to see what this offense could do because they wowed me last year. With Julio, it's just going to get better.
Yeah, definitely. I think Ryan Tannehill is one of the more underrated quarterbacks in the league. I think a lot of people look to see what he did in Miami, but honestly, that's just not the same guy right now. This is a guy that's putting up 30 touchdown season. He's throwing for a lot of yards, and with the big three of Brown, Henry, and Jones to throw to, he has a plethora of options. I think he's going to bounce back. You mentioned Taylor Lewan. He's coming off a season-ending injury last season. I expect him to bounce back and lead that unit. But this team also had a big loss, and it wasn't by a player. It was their coach. Arthur Smith leaves Tennessee. He heads to Atlanta to now be the head coach. So we'll have to see what this offense looks like with a new coach. Do you think there's going to be any hiccups early in the season, changing schemes or changing to a new coach?
Obviously, changing coaches in any situation, it takes some getting used to, moving to maybe a different style. But it does seem like they're still running the 3-4 defensively, and then offense doesn't look too different in how they are lining up. So maybe it might take some getting used to early. Of course, they still have their head coach in Mike Vrabel, but who knows? I mean, I'm not too worried about it, but I mean, there's always a chance.
You mentioned Mike Vrabel still over there leading the defensive unit. This is a team that 2 years ago when they upset the Baltimore Ravens, this was a team that ran the football and they played great defense. Last year, this is a team that played really great offense, but their defense struggled. They tried to go in and get Vic Beasley and Jadeveon Clowney last season for agency. They swung and missed. This season, they tried again, dipping into free agency. They went and got Bud Dupree from the Pittsburgh Steelers. Him and Harold Landry now man the outsides. They have a new defensive coordinator in Shane Bowen, and they bring in a former longtime coach in the league, Jim Shorts, to be a assistant on this defensive staff. So I think this is a defense that's going to have to improve to win this division. Obviously, the offense is very good, but this is a team that was great at defense 2 years ago, and last year it wasn't that. So let's see if they can bounce back. How do you think about these moves they made in Tennessee?
Defensively, yeah, I do think they might have taken a little bit of a step back. I love the Bud Dupree addition. I think he's fantastic, one of the better linebackers in football. They lost, though, defensively, several key guys, in my opinion: Dory Jackson, Malcolm Butler on the corners, Desmond King as well, and then, as you mentioned, Jadeveon Clowney, which definitely takes a piece of quality out of the defense. But you could see they're starting to put things back together. They picked up Janoris Jenkins, who has had you could say his ups and downs in the NFL. Amani Hooker isn't too bad. Neither Kevin Byard's one of the better safeties, if I'm not mistaken. I would do something with the defensive line, though. I definitely think that could use one more piece that's just a little bit better than what they have working right now. I think that falls a little flat. But, yeah, it's not as good as their offense, but you'd like to think that they'll be able to keep it together.
Yeah, you mentioned Kevin Byard. He is definitely one of the better safeties in the league. Another guy that, kind of flies under the radar, it seems like. And this is a very revamped secondary. Byard is the only returning guy. They went ahead and used the top draft pick on Caleb Farley out of Virginia Tech to try to shore up that defense on the outside, because for as many points as this team is expected to score on offense, if you're allowing as many on defense, it really doesn't matter. So this is, that's going to have to be better on defense. And like we mentioned that they should be, but the offense should carry the torch. And, if we take a look at their schedule, they're going to face a couple of good offenses, especially right off the bat. In week 1, they face Kyler Murray and the Arizona Cardinals. In week 9, they play the Los Angeles Rams. They play Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford, a high-level octane offense. Week 10, they play the New Orleans Saints. We don't know if they're going to like with Jameis Winston, but
Yeah.
you know, and obviously in division, you're going to have to deal with Trevor Lawrence in his first season with the Jacksonville Jaguars. So they're going to face their sort of challenges on offense with this schedule. Matt, what are some games you're looking at on this schedule as well?
Yeah, the Titans don't have the easiest schedule, but I don't think it's the toughest. Matchups that stood out to me, all 3 of them are at home, actually. But Buffalo week 6, Josh Allen coming off the best season of his career. That's going to be a big test for that defense, especially the secondary, because those aren't the strongest corners. I think that's something that Josh Allen could really take advantage of week 6. And then right after that, you got to take on Pat Mahomes and Chiefs. That's,
Such stretch of games.
Yeah, you can have one of the best defenses of all time, and he's still going to give you problems. So that's definitely something to look out for. And then week 16 against San Francisco stood out to me just because it's towards the end of the season. We don't know what the standings will look like by then, but I do think that's an important one that the 49ers could steal. So I think that's one that they're going to have to be really locked down for. Those are my 3 probably most interesting matchups, I'd say.
Yeah, those are definitely 3 big games for that team. Outside your division, you're only going to face so many other good quality teams, especially teams that are probably playoff teams or teams fighting for the playoffs. So that's where you really see where your team stacks up. And those are definitely 3 teams that have high potential to make the playoffs and make noise in the playoffs at that. So that's the Titans schedule. That's how they're shaping up. They're obviously the favorites to win this division. If you ask me, I don't know about you, but
Yeah.
moving on down in this division, of course, you're rooting for the Titans something to go a long way. You're having a good year. The Bucks won you a ship, so the Milwaukee Bucks, that is, even though you're wearing a Tampa Bay Bucks shirt. You look very confusing right now, Matt. I have to be honest with you.
I'm happy as a member of the Tampa Bay area, and I've cheered for the Bucks, for years. They're all we really have here, football wise in Tampa. The Titans, though, I mean, I've never seen them play. I've seen them play on TV. I just like what they got going on. I think they got a bright future. I like what they have. Yeah, whatever, dude. Don't interrogate me.
I give you credit for doing it before they made these moves, though.
Yeah.
But moving on down.
There you go. Yeah. Give me credit for something.
Moving on down this division, the team that was slated to be neck and neck with them to win this division, if you ask me, just a couple weeks ago, but some things have changed, and that's the Indianapolis Colts. Obviously, last season, they made the playoffs. They lost in the wild card game to the Buffalo Bills in a game I think they probably should have won. It was a very, very sloppy game. They couldn't execute in the red zone. Phillip Rivers couldn't hit tight windows. And speaking of Phillip Rivers, he is gone, at least for now. He says he might be coming back. And in his replacement was Carson Wentz, a guy that was absolutely fantastic when he was healthy in the beginning of his career in Philadelphia, but injury spiraled. He ran out of town. He comes to Indianapolis for a fresh start with his old quarterback coach. But guess what? The injury bug strikes again. Wentz is out with a foot injury, and we don't know how long he's going to be out for. They're saying 4 to 11 weeks. He could miss several games to start the season. That is huge for this Colts team, who now are looking at starting a second-year guy in Jacob Eason or a rookie in Sam Ehlinger. Matt, how's this breakdown for you with the Indianapolis Colts?
I mean, I can't say I didn't see this coming. The injury bug has always had Carson Wentz's number. The Colts took a risk trading for him. They gave up quite a bit for him. And here we go with a foot injury. I'm also seeing reports now that somehow Wentz and guard Quentin Nelson could be ready for week 1. So I don't know how, but if it happens, it would be a shock to me. But the Colts, like you said, they're supposed to be neck and neck with the Titans. I don't think they did enough. Guys they brought in Carson Wentz, who's obviously on the shelf now. You bring in a tackle in Eric Fisher, who I believe has his own injury issues in the past. And that's about it. They signed a backup kicker in Eddie Pinheiro. That's, big important signing for them. But yeah, they didn't do anything else. Guys that left, Brissett and Rivers, 2 guys that would definitely start over Sam Ehlinger or Jacob Eason these days. You lose your edge in Justin Houston. You lose Malik Hooker, who was a big piece of the secondary. the Colts have regressed 100% based on what they've done in the offseason and based on what they're going to be putting on the field, at least what looks like it'll be week one. This team is not one that could keep up with the Titans, in my opinion.
Yeah, right now things not looking too good for the Colts. Before the Wentz injury, I was high on the Colts. I thought they definitely could have competed with the Titans. And about 2 months ago, I thought the Colts were still the best team in the division. I thought they were going to overstep on the Titans, but that's no longer the case. But this team is going to have an identity and is going to be running the football, and it's going to be behind a big old line. Jonathan Taylor returns for his second season. Marlon Mack, go Bulls, comes back off of a torn up knee. He's going to be the second guy behind Taylor, and he's going to get a fair share of carries on his own. But don't forget, Naheem Hines is still hanging around, the pass catching back, and they have a lot of different options to give the ball to on this with this running back group. They're going to be good. They're going to get the ball a lot because these quarterbacks, they're suspect. So this team is really going to rely on a strong defense led by Darius Leonard and a good front seven in the running game. Question marks I have, will they be able to score enough points, and will the defense be out there for too long is the question.
Yeah, if I'm the Colts, I'm really glad I have that running back core because Jonathan Taylor, Marlon Mack, and Hines, I'd say is a one of the best trios in football, I think, in just consistency. As long as Max stays healthy and they don't have problems there because they're already bit by injury bugs elsewhere. The offense has potential. I know they said they couldn't. I said they can't touch the Titans, but you still got T.Y. Hilton as your wide receiver one. Jack Doyle has improved over the years, and your line's not bad if it's healthy. Eric Fisher, former Super Bowl champ, Quentin Nelson, and then I believe that's my boy Ryan Kelly who played for the Titans. I could be wrong. Am I wrong?
Ryan Kelly?
Yeah.
No, I think that is different people. I could be mistaken.
Well, now we're gonna look it up. But yeah, you looked that up.
Yeah.
I remember him being pretty quality. So yeah, they have pieces that can really work. But yeah, the biggest question mark for them is the
that's a different Ryan Kelly. I thought so.
It's a different one.
Yeah.
Too common of a name, but
I believe so.
I really like what they have pretty much everywhere except quarterback, just because with Wentz, it's a completely different team.
Yeah, you mentioned the wide receivers. I'm actually a little bit worried about some of the wide receivers. T.Y. Hilton, he's getting up there in age. I believe he's 32 years old. He's at the back of his career. They need a big second season out of Michael Pittman Jr. On the outside. And they need Paris Campbell to stay healthy this season. He's shown spurts of being great, the speed start of Ohio State, but he hasn't put everything together to stay healthy. But if he can do that, then this group is a little bit more formidable. But if we look at their schedule, they're in trouble to start the season. We mentioned all these injuries. Their first 5 games: Seattle, Los Angeles Rams, Tennessee Titans, Miami Dolphins, Baltimore Ravens. And the Titans, Dolphins, and Ravens are all on the road. That is a gauntlet of a schedule. Easily could start 0-5. And that would be catastrophic to the season for the Colts.
Yeah. In my toughest opponents, I actually have week 3 and week 5, both at Tennessee and Baltimore. And then I had week 12 at home against Tampa Bay, just because it's the defending champs. They're going to be a problem no matter where they go. But we got to talk about the defense before we dive too far into the schedule.
Well, yeah, I mentioned the defense briefly earlier. Darius Leonard, he's leading that front seven. This team, they've struggled to get to the quarterback generating sacks, so they're going to have to be a lot better at that, generating sacks. And the secondary, they lose Hooker, but I think they were definitely prepared to lose him because he lasted so far in free agency. I think they'll be fine at safety. They brought back Xavier Rhodes at corner, so I think they'll be stable at corner. I think the problem is getting to the passer, and they're going to have to find a way to generate sacks because they've had a revolving door at defensive end next to Justin Houston, and now Houston is gone. So I'm struggling to see how they're going to generate sacks against other teams this season.
Yeah, I completely agree. Defensive end is definitely one of their weaker positions. There's still some strong pieces in there. You mentioned them. Darius Leonard, he got his bag, one of the highest paid linebackers now. DeForest Buckner, as part of the defensive line, is still big as long as he's playing consistently. And I loved Xavier Rhodes on the Vikings. I was actually a really big fan of his. So if he can do anything he did in Minneapolis, I'm all for that. But it's not the worst defense. I definitely think it could use some help or two on the line.
Yeah, I think if they can find ways to generate sacks and just pressures on the quarterback, it'll help everybody on this team. You mentioned Xavier Rhodes. He had a tremendous bounce back season last year for the Colts, and he definitely earned his way back with that contract. But like we said, that schedule is so brutal in the beginning of the season. sadly, it could be over before it starts by the time Carson Wentz comes back. So
Yeah.
they're definitely going to need him to come back and to play good for hopefully a team that has 2, maybe 3 wins out of that gauntlet. Because if you can get a couple wins out of that, then all of a sudden you're looking good. So I think
Yeah.
those first 5 weeks are very, very telling for the Indianapolis Colts. Moving it down this division, we'll go to an exciting team before we hit a dreadful team with the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Urban Meyer era, the Trevor Lawrence era has begun. A lot of question marks on whether Urban Meyer can transition to the NFL and be a good coach. How long will he last? Will he get another heart condition? Will he want to leave early? No one really knows with this team, but this team on paper has the ability to be exciting. Obviously, Trevor Lawrence comes in. He has some pretty decent players around him too. They went ahead and drafted his running mate Travis Etienne at running back at Clemson, the pair of James Robinson. On the outside, they have a second-year guy in Laviska Shenault, who I think this staff is going to get a lot out of. You've seen the way Urban Meyer uses players like Curtis Samuel in college. I think Laviska Shenault could be a gadget guy and be a very, very good player for this Jacksonville Jaguars team. They have DJ Chark on the outside. They went ahead and got Marvin Jones. So a lot of different options for Trevor Lawrence. So Matt, how do you feel about the Jaguars?
This is a team that I feel like a lot of people should be excited to see what they do, because you got the first overall pick, you get Trevor Lawrence, you get my Lord and Savior Tim Tebow. Whether or not he makes the big league team, we'll see. I'm looking forward to it. I will be purchasing a jersey if and when that happens. But he's looked good in camp. I'm having fun with that. And this is another team that has, I talked about the trio of running backs in Indianapolis. This team, I mean, Carlos Hyde as your third string running back is pretty. It's pretty impressive. It's a very underrated pickup, low risk at his stage in his career. And Etienne and James Robinson. I mean, James Robinson had one of the better seasons last season out of all the running backs in the league, not just past Jaguars running backs. Might be the best one since Maurice Jones-Drew. I don't know, but there's a chance that he really could wind up being one of those guys. And wide receiver, you pick up veterans Tavon Austin, Philip Dorsett, which is solid depth, I'd say. But yeah, then you got Chark, you got Marvin Jones Jr., which was a very good pickup. And then Shenault,
Laviska Shenault,
who I believe, wasn't he injured last year? Right?
Yeah, he was injured a little bit.
Yeah. So health, it plays into a lot of this stuff. I mean, it's football. So on paper, a healthy team like this is pretty good. I mean, I like a couple of their pieces on the offensive line. Cam Robinson and Andrew Norwell are definitely one of the more proven offensive linemen in football. And I think Lawrence is set up for success.
Yeah, I think altogether, this is a team that, they're young, but I think they're going to be a little bit exciting. My only problems with the offense is going to be, you're going to have to keep Trevor Lawrence upright. So the offensive line is going to have to do their job. And they have a big glaring hole at tight end. Obviously, you mentioned your Lord and Savior, Tim Tebow, but let's be honest, he's never played in tight end before. So to expect him to be tight end one on this team is a little egregious, if you ask me. Maybe he makes the team and by the end of the season, he can do some things, but I don't think they have really a surefire tight end, which is supposed to be a quarterback's best friend. They don't really have a guy that sticks out to you, but if someone can come up and be productive at tight end for them, I think that'd be big. But it all starts with keeping Trevor Lawrence upright. On the other side of the ball, this is a defense that had a huge turnover in the secondary and in scheme. They go to a 3-4 scheme now, allowing Kayvon Chaisson and Josh Allen to attack the perimeters and drop in coverage, which will let Miles Jack and Joe Sherbert dominate the middle. I think this linebacker duo is going to be very, very good for them. And in the secondary, it's totally revamped. They went and got Shaq Griffin, who returns to the Sunshine State after leaving the Seattle Seahawks. They get Sidney Jones. They draft a safety in Andre Sisco, and they draft Tyson Campbell. So go along with CJ Henderson, who they picked last year, who apparently is on the trading block. So we'll see what happens with him. But they went and really, really totally revamped the secondary. So how do you see about this Jaguars defense shaking out?
I'm gonna be honest. A lot of these names fly under the radar for me, just based on what I know. But from what I do see and recognize, bringing in Shaq Griffin's a nice pickup. I think I'd say he was one of the better corners left at the Seahawks. CJ Henderson, of course, I'm familiar with him from his days in college. If they trade him, better get something back that's pretty solid. If I'm them, I hold on to him unless he really needs to leave. Miles Jack, a veteran linebacker, I don't mind that. Honestly, I don't have as much to say about this defense as some of the past ones, but it seems like a solid defense. It's not elite, but it's not, completely lackluster either.
No, it's not an elite group, but I think the switch and scheme is going to allow for this defense to play to their highest potential. I think Chason, he's a little skinny and he wasn't going to hold up on the with his feet, with his hands in the dirt on the line. I think standing him up is going to unlock his full potential. We already know Josh Allen is a beast. I think standing up or on the ground, he's going to be a great player. And I think standing up just allows him to do so many more things. And he has the slight ability to drop in coverage. I think Joe Schobert is a very underrated linebacker in the middle. He's going to rack up the tackles for this team. And I like the moves they made at corner. I like going and get Shaq Griffin. Sidney Jones, he's a decent player. He didn't get the most love in Philadelphia because, let's face it, it's hard to get love in Philadelphia. And I really like the addition of going and get Cisco at safety. I think that it was second that needed to get revamped, and I think they did a good job of going and get some players that maybe got overlooked a little bit, like Cisco getting picked later in the draft. I think this defense is going to be good, and I think they're going to fly under the radar. And I think this Jags team, they're not going to go and win like 7 games or anything crazy, but I think they're not going to be pushovers. I think they're going to have the ability to shock some teams and to give some teams close games. And, we mentioned this team, fighting with other teams. If we do take a look at their schedule, they have a couple of hard games, but then they have a couple of games that are winnable. Early on, they play Houston, they play Arizona, they play Cincinnati. Then they have their bye week after week 7. They have a couple of games that are winnable. In week 16, they play Zach Wilson and the Jets. That'll be a very, very good game that a lot of people are going to have their eyes on. So, Matt, what are some games you're looking on this schedule?
It's pretty repetitive just because I mentioned them with, I believe, the Titans earlier and the Colts in some capacity. But week 9 at home against Buffalo, Josh Allen, like I said, repetitive. Week 11 against San Francisco. I do think that's, San Francisco, I feel like they could either be real good this year or really bad. And we're going to talk about that. You and I will talk about that in our future video, the NFC West. But yeah, that's one that, I don't think Jaguars are in a playoff race or anything, but it's just one that they could potentially steal. And then week 14, you're in Tennessee against the Titans. And that's just, I don't know. I'd already chalked that one up as a loss. But yeah, like you said, there are plenty of opportunities for them to steal games like that against the Jets, against the Bengals. I haven't won in about 4 games, but I'd love to be proven wrong.
Yeah, they have an interesting stretch at the end of the season, week 15 through 17. They play Houston, New York, and New England, and potentially they could face 3 rookie quarterbacks, if by then the Texans decide to not play Tyrod Taylor and play Mills. The Jets obviously have Zach Wilson, and by week 17, maybe the Patriots are rolling out Mac Jones. So that would be very interesting if we saw rookie quarterbacks all play each other in 3 straight games like that.
Yeah, that's a great part of the season that they could take advantage of for sure.
Yeah, fans may not be happy that they win 3 straight games at the end of the season and they go from like the 4th pick to like the 10th pick.
That's
what
true,
are you doing? But you got to rack up these wins when you got a young quarterback and you got a young team like this. You want to build momentum. You don't want to keep picking in the top 2 to 3, like a team that we're going to talk about next, the Houston Texans.
Yeah.
Let's face it, this team could be picking in the top 5 for the next 3 to 5 years, depending on what they do with a particular quarterback on the roster. Obviously, everything starts and ends for Deshaun Watson, one of the best quarterbacks in the entire league when he's healthy and when he's on the field. But the problem is we don't know when he's going to be on the field. He has said he's not going to play for the Texans. The Texans said they were going to trade him, and then they were going to trade him. But maybe they waited too long because we don't know what's going to happen, and we don't know what's going to happen with Deshaun Watson's legal situation. But everything starts and ends with him for this football team, Matt.
Yeah, he is at this point, J.J. Watt's gone. He's the face of this team, and it's not a face you want to have if you're a Texans fan, just because what's going on off the field with Deshaun Watson. Obviously, we know he's a great quarterback, but we don't know if he'll be suiting up in a regular season game for them this year. And that is really where the question lies. Kind of like the Colts, you don't know who your quarterback's going to be. Luckily, unlike the Colts, you don't have a 6th-round rookie potentially starting for you. Tyrod Taylor, who I think is a very solid backup. Obviously, he wasn't able to play almost all of last season due to some heart condition he had, something that happened in practice,
punctured
right?
lung.
I'm sorry.
Guy punctured his lung.
They punctured his lung. So I'm sure he's very glad to get away from the health staff in LA and head to Houston. Although I do think he'll win less games here, but they were busy in the offseason. The Texans, they tried. You can't say they didn't make effort. They brought in Shaq Lawson, Christian Kirksey, Marcus Cannon, the veteran tackle. Another good running back core, if I'm being honest. David Johnson, Phillip Lindsay, and Mark Ingram is pretty solid as you can get, really. Wide receivers, it kind of dips off after Brandon Cooks, but Anthony Miller's decent. He's fast at least, so there's that. No quality at tight end. Laramie Tunsil is here and there at the tackle position. And then can Cannon still go at right tackle? I mean, right guard, I'm sorry. Who knows? I think he's getting up there in age, but yeah, it's another situation where it's kind of gonna sit on Watson. I don't hate this team, honestly. I don't think they're terrible, but they're not too far off from being terrible.
Yeah, I don't agree. I think they're a pretty bad football team right now. Obviously, they were busy in free agency. They had, I want to say, like 30 to 35 veteran players. And like you said, the running back room is not bad, but we had Johnson and Ingram. We haven't seen the most productive seasons in the past 2 years. Ingram was not too far moved off from a great season with Baltimore, but that was a scheme that really allowed him to flourish. I don't think he's going to have the same opportunities with Tyrod Taylor quarterback. No disrespect to Tyrod Taylor, but who's he going to throw to? You mentioned the wide receivers are a little bit weak. They got Brandon Cooks, Kiki QT, Anthony Miller, and they got a rookie and Nico Collins that they picked. That's probably going to get he's going to get every opportunity to play this season, if you ask me. The question is, when's David Mills probably going to go ahead and play? Tyrod Taylor, he's been labeled as a guy that's great to groom young quarterbacks. I think Tyrod Taylor's going to have his most success at playing this season. His previous stops with Cleveland and LA, things didn't necessarily go as well with injuries and with other guys behind him that overtook him that were younger and had the franchise's blessing, to go out and play because that was their future. But I think Tyrod's going to have a good chance to play this season, but I don't think the weapons are anywhere near capable for this team to win several games. You only won 4 games last year. I think it's going to be hard for them to come across and win 4 games this season, if you ask me.
Yeah, I actually have them projected to win around 4. It'll be a battle for third place between the Jaguars and the Texans. And honestly, more of a who tanks first competition because you got Trevor Lawrence in Jacksonville. You want to give him some confidence and kind of put some trust in him that this is the right place for him and this is not going to become a constant thing. So I hope the Jaguars don't tank. The Texans are totally a team that I could see tanking, especially without Watson, just because, what do you have to play for, really? You're not going to contend with the Titans. It's not realistic. A Colts team with Wentz, you're not going to contend with. And even without Wentz, I don't think they're that bad. The Texans could be in for a bad couple of years, like you said. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't see the Jaguars tanking. I think with them, it's just going to be a product of a young team, learning how to win football games. I think they're going to be in some more competitive games than they have been in the past. The Texans team, though, I think eventually they are going to, quote unquote, go in the tank mode. I think eventually Tyrod Taylor is going to hand the keys over to David Mills, who was the Texans' top pick. They didn't have first, second round pick at this draft. So in the 3rd round, they went and selected him. That was their number 1 pick. And when you take a quarterback, when you have Deshaun Watson on your roster, it's pretty significant that you're going to end up moving them at some point. And the question is, what are you going to get for them? Obviously, they have a very, very high price tag set to them to where only a couple of teams can really go ahead and get them. If you look your eyes at the NFC East, that they instantly jump out as teams that can go get them. The Eagles, the Reds, the Washington football team, and the New York Giants are 3 of the few teams that have the assets that the Texans are asking for. So it's tough times to be in Houston. You just trade James Harden. I'd rather trade Deshaun Watson. Not a good time to be a Houston sports fan. I wouldn't buy any jerseys anytime soon if I were supporting a team in Houston.
Yeah, better hope Altuve doesn't leave. Correa's a free agent at the end of this year, so buckle up, Houston fans.
Yeah, TJ Maxx might be filled with plenty of jerseys in Houston soon, but that does it for us here breaking down the AFC South. I think me and Matt both have the consensus that the Titans are going to take the division. We both think that the Colts will probably finish second with the Jaguars a promising 3rd, and the Texans a lackluster 4th. Any last words, Matt?
Tim Tebow, comeback player of the year already? Really? You're saying
I'm going to be honest. If Tebow makes the roster, I would put a lot of money that he scores a rushing touchdown this year.
100%.
Definitely will be in at the goal line at quarterback, man. Definitely will bulldoze someone into the end zone. That I would like to see. Not comeback player of the year. I think you're a little bit too far off, but we'll see.
Anything can happen. It's Tim Tebow. He makes things happen.
You know what? I can't argue with that. He sure does. And for that, that was Jamil. That is Matt. And that was AFC South Preview. Have a good one, everybody.